Welcome to the Calm Cockpit podcast, the show that helps pilots think clearly, stay calm, and perform at their best when it matters most. Each episode delivers practical strategies, real-world aviation wisdom, and mindset tools that help create confident pilots and safe flights.
Today, we're talking about something every pilot has experienced. Sitting in a hot cockpit on a summer day and wondering if you're flying an airplane or just slow cooking yourself. Especially if you fly a smaller aircraft before the wheels can even leave the ground. You can find yourself sitting under a greenhouse-like canopy with the sun just beating down, having limited airflow and temperatures that just seem to climb by the minute.
I can relate to this, and the challenge isn't that heat and dehydration are just uncomfortable, it's that they can directly affect pilot performance, decision-making, situational awareness, and safety. We discuss how these conditions can affect the body, creative ways to stay cool, and how to survive these hot summer months while still flying your best.
The Calm Cockpit podcast starts now.
Mike Oscar, runway 27, clear for takeoff.
Welcome, everyone, to today's episode. I'm Geeta Brown, licensed yoga and meditation educator and music educator with over 30 years of experience of teaching high performers how to improve their performance and lives, but without adding stress. And I'm also a midlife student pilot.
And I'm John Niehaus, corporate pilot and flight instructor. So pilots, you are finding those of you at AirVenture right now as this is downloading into your phones. My guess, since I'm not there this year, it's probably 98 degrees with 100% humidity. Maybe it rained last night and it's just swampy, but you love it anyways because that's what you do. So those of you going to AirVenture, those of you coming out of AirVenture, you are in the thick of this right now. And Geeta, my student pilot friend, you're in the midst of it right now up in the Northeast. So regardless of whether you're at AirVenture or not, this is the world we live in right now, right?
Yeah, it's hot. I mean, I just got done flying this morning and we were pre-flighting at 7:30. I don't know, wheels up by like 8, landed before 10. And even then, going super early, by the time I got out of the airplane, hair was soaked, sweating down the face. I looked real pretty when I got in the plane, right? Makeup was done, was put together. I walked out of it looking like a swamp rat. I mean, like the sweat pits, the whole deal. Not a good look. There's just no other way around it. And I always come home and I tell my husband, oh, it was so hot, you know, it can lead to a little more struggle. And he looks at me, he goes, doesn't your airplane have air conditioning? I'm like, dude, I fly a vintage Cessna. Think of like a Volkswagen bus from the 1970s. No, it does not have air conditioning. But I've learned a lot in the past couple of years of being a student pilot. This is now my second or third summer flying in this weather. So I've learned a little bit and I know some yoga-ish things, so we can get into those. It's definitely a challenge. For sure.
Yeah. I mean, that doesn't always change as you progress in your career. I can tell you the larger the airplane, in my case, the quicker it cools, surprisingly enough, just because it's got more power to provide airflow through the aircraft. But one of my first jets, the Lear 45/75, that one was interesting because some of them actually did have a little switch once you got enough power to turn an AC unit on.
Oh.
Now, in the middle of Naples, Florida, when it's 100 degrees and you've got this tiny little air conditioner trying to cool down the airplane,
yeah,
it's welcome, but it doesn't necessarily do as much as you would think. So it's a struggle even as you start to progress, if that's something you're interested in doing, into newer airplanes. I happen to consider myself very lucky because my current airplane cools down very, very fast. But you'd be also surprised at how often pilots are still in the middle of summer in wool pants and long sleeves, and they want us to look nice. And like you said, hopefully you're just standing there waiting to see if the pit stains start showing up when it's super, super hot. So hopefully this can apply to everyone, although I think the focus will be more on the small aircraft side. And I want to give you more thoughts than just this stereotype of, well, we're just going to keep the door open while we taxi, because I think we all know that that's a solution here.
Yeah, for sure.
As we kind of already covered, summer flying can be one of the most enjoyable times of the year. It's beautiful weather, no cloud in the sky, sometimes nice non-windy days, but it also provides us with some very unique, both physical and psychological challenges, kind of the mind over matter when it comes to how hot you happen to be, and you're just hoping to get high enough in the air to finally find a little bit of cool air. Most pilots will focus on kind of that aircraft performance. What's your density altitude? How well is my takeoff distance and my landing distance and all of those fun things? But we forget that that also affects pilot performance. Make sure that when you're thinking about the machine, you're also thinking about the human machine, because there's some very important things that we have to discuss about this. And small aircraft can get very, very hot while they are parked. And some of it may be, are you on blacktop? Are you on concrete? Is it going to heat up faster where you are? I mean, we even know they had a ton of reports a couple of years ago, and I'm sure it'll continue with the airlines, and they were in Vegas. The little known fact is that some of these airplanes actually have a maximum temperature rating.
Oh, right.
Where if you're in an airliner, we all know that there's a certain coldness we can't deal with, but that will also ground the airplanes if you get too hot. Consider that maybe there's also some times where you just don't go. Not that any of us want to hear that, but if the airliners aren't going, maybe you shouldn't consider going either. From what we've been able to tell, the average aircraft can increase by about 20 degrees in addition to the air temperature outside. So if it's 80 degrees with the little greenhouse effect and the bubble of the way that the windows are and everything, I mean, you might find yourself in a 100-degree cockpit and hoping that getting up to 5,000 feet is going to cool it down enough to be tolerable. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. So what happens to our bodies when we're sitting in this hot airplane and we're just trying to get off the ground? What happens to us as human beings, Geeta? What do you think?
Oh, well, it's bad, as my friends in opposing bases would say. Bad. It's not good. So our brains work best under certain operating conditions. I mean, we need certain temperature and certain environment. For our friends like who live down in Florida, Georgia, you do get acclimated to a certain being hotter than me, like a northerner like me. However, we all have a threshold, and anything that deviates from that, even by like a couple of degrees or a different environment, like you're used to dry heat and you go into the humidity that's like happening at Oshkosh right now, that can cause a tremendous stress on the brain. They've done these studies, and I don't know how they did them. They just made people hot, but they found that higher temperatures correlate with lower test scores for students. And they did a 2025 analysis of 3 million tests taken by students, and they found that math scores worsened on hot days. This is no good for a pilot where we're relying on, nailing airspeed and watching temperatures creep up higher. And there's also been a number of studies done by, is it OSHA who does all the workplace studies? Yeah. So they have found that high temperatures are directly correlated with increased accident rates at the workplace, which is, again, bad, not good. So part of what's happening is things we've talked about. We have a couple of episodes there where we've talked about hydration and that your brain is mostly water. It's water, and obviously you have your gray matter. But when you lose that water volume of the brain, it's going to slow those neural processes down. It slows the thinking time down. And it's literally like what your brain is counting on for its functioning of transmitting information from neuron to neuron is not there, or it's at a different proportion or ratio than you're used to. So you go to reach for a memory and you feel a little fuzzy. It's because you don't have the physical fluids in your brain to help those neurons jump the gaps between each other. Not good. It's like taking a hot car on a super hot day and you're trying to climb up a mountain. It's just going to get slower and slower, and then eventually it overheats. Our bodies are biomechanical mechanisms. They're kind of the same way. So a lot of it comes to the heat, the physical distraction as well. I think we have an episode. I think it was a bonus episode I did on hydration. I talked about that a lot. Go listen to that one. But it's also the physical distraction of being so hot. I mean, I've certainly felt it. I did my solo cross countries on the day after we had like a heat warning, one of those they put out from NOAA that says, don't go outside. It's going to be so hot, right? So I did my first solo cross country the day after that, where it was technically out of like the danger zone. But the airport manager said, hey, when you're on the ramp, don't step on any of the cracks that have that sealant on them because all of it's melted. That's how hot it was.
Ooh.
And I can tell you the physical feeling of being so hot is a major cognitive distraction because part of our brain is always scanning the environment for threats to our physical system. It's part of our brain is just always doing that. It runs on our, subconscious control. It's the reticular activating system. It's constantly seeking what's dangerous, what do I need to look out for? And when you're sitting, like you said, you're cooking in a little sauna of an aircraft, that reticular activating system is going, I'm feeling extreme heat. This is not good. I can't sweat enough to cool myself off. Do I need to alert the human to escape this environment, and tips you towards that from parasympathetic drive into that sympathetic nervous system drive where now you're in fight or flight and you don't even know it. Because so many of these processes happen at that subconscious level, this is where it's dangerous for pilots because we might not notice how badly we're overheating until we're going, oh no, I can't figure out what I should be doing. And then we put ourselves in a bad situation. So that's why I think making decisions when you're on the ground before you put yourself in the heat, that's when you're going to make a better decision. If I had it to do over again, I don't know that I would have done my solo cross countries those days. I think now I would know more to self-advocate and say, why am I going to struggle through that all day long? My iPad overheated. I was overheating. I did it, but it was not fun, really, because it was so hot. It's a real danger when we start to tax our physical system because all those subconscious processes will take over and try to save us. And we need to be really aware of those before we put ourselves into the extreme heat. There's only so much you can gut through, right?
It's true. And flight instructors, I'm looking at you because think about this. Geeta, you show up in the morning, you do your flight, 2-hour block probably,
Yep.
You go home, you sweat, you change your clothes.
Yep.
What's that flight instructor doing? That flight instructor is getting ready for their next lesson, their next student, and it's only progressively getting hotter each day. And one of the main things that we're talking about, again, back to hydration, is the whole idea of like flight instructors. I know how your schedules are. I used to do it. It's boom, boom, boom. One student, next student, next student. Sometimes you get lunch. Sometimes you don't. Guess what you're not doing on a very hot day? Drinking enough water. Why? Either A, you have just lost track of time and you haven't done it, or B, in some cases, you're afraid to have more water because you don't want to have to go to the bathroom while you're flying with your student. Because the last thing you're thinking about when you're instructing, when you have to go potty is, I have a 6-year-old, sorry, is flying around in the pattern. So instructing your student, giving that important information. I got to get down on the ground. I'm just thinking about that over and over again. And of course, we love our coffee, which doesn't help you in hydration mode. So you're starting your morning with a big cup of coffee. And then next thing you know, it's 1:00 and you're having your first glass of water or Gatorade or whatever it is that you're drinking. So we'll get to some of this stuff, but these are why pilots especially and flight instructors, again, looking at you, why you might be more susceptible to some of the negative effects of these things. Charter pilots. I was one of you guys as well. Florida, hugely popular destination.
Yeah.
Again, wool pants, long sleeves.
Hot.
It's the same kind of thing. So
One quick caveat before we get into the effects. I just want to say a CFI I was just talking to the other day, he said, I realized after doing this for like 6 years that I set a temperature limit. And when the temperature is going to go above that consistently from 11 o'clock on, I cancel the day. He made it like a standard operating procedure. I think it's like 94 or 95 and a certain percentage humidity. He said, I know people down in Florida fly in that and whatever. He said, but they fly early in the morning or later in the day. I'm not doing it because it shortchanges my students. They suffer through it, but they don't learn anything. And I don't feel good about charging them that money. And I was like, I love it because he just has it written down. It's not a decision. It's okay. We'll be fine. We can go. He just has it written into the school contract. So, if the temperature is going to go above a certain point, you just don't go. I think that's a great decision. It takes that get-there-itis out of the whole sitch.
It does. And one of the other traps that we fall into as instructors is we know that the sooner we get the engine running, the sooner we start to feel a little bit of relief, right?
Right.
But at that same time, now you run the risk, and I'm not saying people do this, but I'm sure it happens subconsciously at the very least, is you start to rush through the things
Oh,
that
yeah.
you're supposed to do prior to getting the engine running. Things like a pre-flight briefing, or maybe you're rushing your walk around because there's no shade and it's super hot. So some of these important parts to not just the fundamentals of learning for the student, but also the safety of the flight, you might be rushing through just to get to a point where it's like, at least the propeller's running now. We're good. So just be careful with all of these things. As we discussed, the body starts to sweat. Sweat is your primary cooling mechanism. Now you're increasing blood flow to the skin to help reduce heat, but your body's working harder. Your heart is working harder. And so even whether you're concentrating or not, there's a certain part of your brain that is actually now being devoted to just keeping your body in a position where it's comfortable, or trying to be anyways. And now you're stealing some of that brain power from flying the airplane, teaching the student, communicating properly, all of those things.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've mentioned before, too, if you're low on water volume, either because you haven't hydrated adequately or hadn't had a hydration solution that will actually get to your tissues, you've lost some blood volume there. So your heart is working harder and your blood is thicker. And then if you add into it like a little spike, like say it's a little gusty, you're trying to nail that short field landing. Now your heart is beating so fast and it's working so hard that it can tip your nervous system into that fight or flight mode as well. And that's the piece where I think people miss it. They're like, oh, your heart's working harder. Okay, that's not great. But what that does to your nervous system is it tips you into stress, near panic mode. And that shuts down your cerebral cortex and your ability to think and to reason, which is why like catching these trains, of accidents with how we treat our physical body way before it starts is just an absolute game changer.
Yeah, I kind of equate it to like flying fatigued.
Yeah,
right?
Totally.
So when you're hot and you're reading a checklist and you find yourself looking at the third item or fourth item and you kind of already forgot what the first two were, and now you got to start over again. Like that is the same kind of feeling that I get if I'm tired.
Yeah.
It's all situational awareness. It's slower decision making. It's increasing the likelihood of just making a mistake in general. So these are the things that we're concerned about. And if you start finding yourself missing things like an ATC call, or your student asks you a question and maybe you were kind of looking out the window trying to concentrate on how not hot you actually are. These are all things. So let's get into some hydration strategies.
Awesome.
I think we've talked enough about all the negative effects, so we can we're all feeling it right now in the middle of this heat. I've had more heat awareness messages from the Weather Channel than not in the last few weeks. So,
Same here.
Yeah, my air conditioning unit in my house is running way, way too hard. So, as we've discussed, hydration is the most effective way to keep these symptoms from developing, but we're not so good at doing these things. Geeta, how do you stay hydrated when you need to fly?
Well, the first thing I do is I think about it 24 hours before I'm actually flying, which I think is different. People usually wait until they're like a sweaty mess and they go, I should drink some water.
That's me.
You do that. I have learned for me, especially being a woman, so now I'm 54, I've gone through menopause, I just run drier. My skin is drier, my eyes are drier. Like I have to stay on my hydration game. Otherwise, I don't know what would happen to me. A beam of sunlight would just make me fizzle into dust. So for me, I found it helps so much to really be on point with my hydration, honestly, 24/7. But if I've fallen off of that a little bit, like I was traveling or whatever, then I make sure that 24 hours before a flight lesson, I really dial in that hydration. Because to your point, I don't want to be running to the bathroom before the pre-flight, after the pre-flight. I want to make sure that all of my tissues have had this really nice homeostasis. Like everything's been really well hydrated. So I go into it already with my reserves topped up, not necessarily of water, but my body not needing to work hard to figure out, is this person going to give me enough fluid or not? So the day before, I make sure that I'm really staying on point. I have a water bottle and I just time, if I've had 4 or 5 of those water bottles in a day, I know that for me, that's enough. And I also up my intake of fruit and your favorite, John, veggies. Because fruit and veggies, they have natural water in them. They're absolutely fantastic. And even just eating an apple or some grapes or some watermelon the day before gets that into your body. Plus you get the bonus, the vitamins, the minerals, the fiber. It's all a good thing. And then on the day of, I try to be actually strategic about my hydration so that I'm staying hydrated, but I will admit that I drink slightly less than I do on a non-flying day. Otherwise, I just need, as you called it, the potty, way too much. And it's a hassle. But this has been through a lot of like tracking and observing. I'm not hydrating. I'm not under hydrating. I'm just drinking slightly less less, and I'm much more likely on the day of to sip constantly from my water bottle, like every half hour, just have a few sips rather than the days off when I just can chug, 12 to 16 ounces. So I find that really just making it a strategy overall for life is helpful. And then the day before the flight, dialing it in, fruit and veggies, and then the day of, sip on a consistent level. So I don't ever tip into that, oh no, because once you're in that, oh no, it's too late stage, all you can do is get in somewhere cool and drink a lot and wait for it to take effect. And you don't want to be doing that when you're flying along at 5,000.
Yeah. And so, I guess the next question is water versus electrolytes. Is it water? Is it Gatorade? Is it Powerade? Or in some cases, you mentioned in a previous episode that what you tend to do, and maybe this applies, maybe it doesn't, is you do your water with a little bit of honey and a little bit of salt in it. Is that the same or?
Yeah. So what we want is water gets absorbed to our tissues through the small intestine. And if you drink, particularly I'm talking about like a large bolus of water first thing in the morning, so you're fasted, you don't have anything else in your gut, and you just drink 8, 10, 12, 16, whatever bits of water, that water goes to your stomach, goes to your small intestine, and if it doesn't have some salt and some sugar, the process of osmosis will not happen, and you will end up peeing out most of that water. It'll just flush through your system without actually going to the tissues. So it needs a small amount of glucose and a small amount of that salt to get through that osmotic barrier. I will not go into that science of it, but those two things are key for it to get from the small intestine into the tissues and into the blood. So I actually use a little bit of maple syrup and a little pinch of sea salt. You can't even taste it in the water. It's not like you're chugging this like salty, sweet maple syrupy thing. It's just a little bit. You can do the same thing though if you don't want to do that or you don't have it handy. If you're eating breakfast, that's going to have salt and sugar in it. So you're going to be fine there. That's going to help that water to get into the tissues. So I do that every morning, and I found that it's much more effective for hydration. And something how they go for pilots is LMNT. LMNT. It's a hydration salt, and they come in little packs, which are perfect for the flight bag. You can just tick them in there. They are very salty. You can adjust it to your taste. They are super salty, but their whole thing is that you need that salt in order to get that hydration. You will hear a lot of people say that you only need electrolytes if you're sweating excessively. And I would say you need electrolytes if you're feeling brain fog, if you're operating in a hot environment. If you're a woman who's gone through menopause, you might want to experiment with them and see what your results are. Because just because the science says you don't need them unless you're a pro athlete sweating, not necessarily. For me, electrolytes have really changed the brain fog that I was experiencing on a regular level. So they're a great thing to try out. I think it's very individual.
LMNT.
Yes.
Interesting. I will have to look that up because I've never heard of that before.
They're basically a little salt pack, but less sugar than a lot of the electrolyte solutions have. Like Gatorade, I mean, you're basically drinking a donut. It has so many calories. It has so much more than you need. You just need a little bit of this. They are expensive, but I find them to be one of the better ones on the market. We will link those in the show notes.
And while I have had my fair share of Gatorade over the years, my sister's favorite is pickle juice Gatorade. And I'm sorry, any company that makes pickle juice Gatorade that you can drink if you're working out, I think I would rather drink anything but. So sorry, Gatorade, you lost me at pickle juice.
I had a piece of taffy the other day that was dill pickle flavored. Ugh. And I thought it was like watermelon, and I put it out, like, oh my God, what is this that I'm eating? No. I love my pickles, but not like that.
So in true Cockpit format, I decided to ask this question, not just to the public, but also to the AI overlords that we all know are coming.
Oh my
God. My pilot friends, you did about as well as ChatGPT did, if I'm being truly honest.
Oh, no.
We are not as creative of a group as I would have hoped, because the general responses from both categories was try to do as much inside as you can. Stay in air conditioning until you really have to. Do your planning indoors. Well, of course, nobody's going out to the airplane to do their cross-country planning. Like, let's face it, people.
Right.
So the one thing that did come up, and it's a little bit of a different concept nowadays, is kind of what you're wearing. Mm-hmm. Now, we all want to be professional, especially if you're a flight instructor, or you're a corporate pilot, something like that. So a lot of schools will mandate long pants, those types of things. Not always long sleeves, but certainly long pants. So there are definitely different kinds of fabrics fabrics out there that you can look for. My personal favorite is actually, there's a lot of stuff that's made out of bamboo nowadays. You get a couple different benefits. The first being that it's super lightweight, it's super soft, it usually sits pretty well and looks professional depending on where you got it from. But a lot of that bamboo stuff also has a lot of SPF protection. So anywhere from 20 to 40, depending on how thick of a fabric it is. And there's been a lot of research nowadays about how pilots are susceptible to skin cancer. Now, certainly the higher you go, and when you start getting into jets and things like that, you get exposed to a lot more radiation because you're closer in the atmosphere and everything else. But if you're spending 8 hours in a small airplane in a little Cirrus with the bubble cockpit and it just magnifies the sunlight straight on you, I mean, if you are not considering wearing some kind of sunscreen, which you should, at least you can get some of these fabrics that are going to give you a little bit more of a breathable atmosphere for yourself, but then also protect your skin as a whole nother conversation. So something to consider as you are packing yourself for the day to fly. Find some of that moisture wicking, find some of that thinner fabric, assuming it's professional looking. That might get you at least a little bit of an edge as you're climbing into something that's already hot.
So I've been experimenting with 2 different schools of thought on this because all of my teachers from my yoga tradition, integral yoga, the majority of them are from India and from southern India, Coimbatore. It's hot there. And they wear clothing that covers, from the neck, long sleeves and long pants, but extremely loose, very flowing. Some of them are actually robes. Some of them are just like very long shirts and loose baggy pants. And so I've been talking to them about it like, okay, Americans, we tend to think get less on your skin, right? The shorty shorts, the sleeveless shirt, so you get that evaporative cooling and you're going to be cooler without all this heavy fabric. I'm like, how are you wearing all of this fabric? And one of my friends said to me, she said, well, the loose clothing tends to let the heat, it's almost like a heat pump. The warm air gets trapped in between the skin and the clothing, and then that warm air rises up to the top. And as the warm air rises to the top, it creates like a pump where then the hot air escapes out of the top and the cool air can then circulate through the bottom. This is if they're wearing like really loose pants, that airflow can come up through the bottom. I was like, really? So you're not hot in that? She's like, no, not at all. It also keeps the sun off my skin because think they're southern India. They're talk closer to the sun. They're even closer to the sun down there. So like it keeps the sun off the skin. It keeps me much cooler than if I was wearing, the skimpy. That's an interesting concept. And then I heard some hikers talk about the same thing. I believe they were from Norway, if I'm remembering these folks correctly. And they advocate for wearing full sleeves in the summer. So long sleeves and long pants, even when they're hiking out in the heat. And they said that allows, to your case, they were not letting the heat pump thing happen, but they had a loose fitting cloth and then, like you were saying, a breathable fabric that would allow the sweat and the heat to escape through the material, but it was keeping the sun off their skin. And they felt that was keeping them much cooler. And I've kind of experimented with that because I was very American, very much from the school of like, get the shorts on, get the, the no sleeve shirt and you'll be good. But, wanting to look nice and put together on the flight line, even though I'm not professional, I really don't want to look like a beach bum out there. So I've been experimenting with it. And I have to say that wearing long pants versus shorts, no functional difference for me in how hot or cool I am. And I've discovered, to your point, John, a mixture of linen and hemp to be a really great material for me. It's actually what I wore today. Shirt has a collar and buttons, but because it's linen and hemp, it allows, the fabric is very breathable, does something else because it has a lot of like texture to the fabric. It keeps it from clinging to the skin and you don't get that like, sucked on when your t-shirt, a cotton shirt gets stuck to you and then it just makes you hotter because you're not breathing. Another fabric? I don't know. Pilots wearing seersucker. Do you know what seersucker is?
I do not.
Oh my gosh, we're going to have to include a link to it. Like it's a very popular fabric in the Northeast. The preppies would wear it. It's this like really bunched up fabric. They make whole suits out of seersucker. It became very popular when the Brits were occupying India. But this seersucker fabric, it's like puckered and wrinkled. So the threads really bunch together. And 2 things to that is that it already looks wrinkled all the time. So you still look good, even if it's been sat on all day. But it also prevents it, same idea as the cotton and hemp. keeps it from flattening and sticking to you when you're hot and sweaty. And it creates these tiny little air pockets that, again, create that circulation between you and fabric that you're wearing. So my vote is linen and hemp. That's my vote for fabric of the day. Try it out, pilots. We'd love to hear from you. Do you go short sleeves, short shorts, or do you cover up? Email us at calmcockpit@gmail.com. Let us know.
All I know is last time I wore Daisy Dukes to work, they told me to go home, and I ended up having a really fun conversation with the party poopers at HR. So,
it was a whole thing.
It's a whole thing. To your point, there's a ton of brands out there. What I have learned is we can actually take a lot from fishermen.
Yes.
There's this whole thing out there on how fishermen can dress to stay cool on the boat and on the ocean and things like that. And so the brand that I have actually gone with is a brand called Free Fly. They're sort of an outdoor fishing brand, and they do all this bamboo stuff. It's a little bit pricey, but even if you get like 1 or 2 shirts, they're amazing and they do protect you from the sun. So that's what I like.
Ooh, I hope they have a women's line. I'm going to check it out. I totally agree that bamboo is awesome.
So then we get into kind of the hydration stuff again. And one of the things that my wife actually found, she would get headaches if she wasn't drinking. And I kind of was standing there going, I just don't understand. Like, if you know you get headaches, why can't you just drink some water? The solution to that was we actually found a smart water bottle. Now, they make smart everything nowadays, but this is actually, it's a water bottle that connects via Bluetooth to your phone, and it will actually send you text messages saying like, hey, I know how much water you've drank, because it measures how much you put in, it measures how much comes out, and it measures how often. So every time she would have a sip, if the water bottle got grumpy, it would light up, and then it would actually send her a text like, you need to drink more water.
Wow.
I think the only complaint was that the water bottle itself needed to be a little bit bigger because she was drinking through it very quickly.
Yeah.
But it definitely at least helped for those of you that like that's just not a part of your mindset. It's not something that you think about regularly and you need some reminders. There are smart water bottles out there that can help you with that. And
That's
so
so
pilots,
cool.
I'm looking at you. You're looking at your phones anyways, because you're probably looking at your schedule. You're looking at your iPad for charts or whatever. If it can ping you right there and say, hey, just take a sip, maybe that's a solution for you as well. And anytime you have these water bottles, maybe not the smart ones, you can freeze them. You can add in frozen fruit to your point. Like you get some frozen watermelon, you throw that into the water bottle. Now your water tastes better, encouraging you to drink a little bit more. But then also you've got the extra addition of the fruit that will help keep your sort of levels normal as well.
I love this Bluetooth water bottle. We'll see if we can find a link for that. I'll put it in the show notes. Because I think anything we can do to create an environment where we're going to succeed is great. Any friction point you can eliminate. If it's like, I need to remember to drink more water. If you can take that I need to remember part of it out of your brain and offload it onto an app, why not do that? It's going to make the habit easier. And then once you feel how good you feel when you're hydrated, it just becomes an automatic. Can I tell you my story about my master who would drink hot coffee on a hot summer day, since we're talking hydration? So for years, I studied Chinese martial arts, Tai Chi and Qigong. Tai Chi is like the more slow flowing inner cultivation of energy. Kung Fu, we all know what that is. So I had a great master, Master Guo. He's, phenomenal, coached the Chinese national team. He's just awesome. Great teacher. So I go into a training session one day in the summer and it was hot. We were training in a former grocery store that he had bought. And then we just put down the mats and we would train in there, but huge store, right? So this martial arts academy couldn't necessarily afford to keep it at American supermarket level cold, which is like 70 degrees and no humidity, right? So he had it as cool as he could, but I walked him like, Master, whoa, it's so hot in here. He's like, yeah, I know. And then he takes a sip of this coffee and I can see the steam coming off of it. And I was very new to all of these practices, very, very green. And I looked at it, I said, Master Guo, I don't understand. Shouldn't you be drinking ice water? He went, ice water. No, that's the opposite of how we do it in China. And I was like, what? He said, this is his idea, and I've tried it since. He said, when you drink something like cold ice water, you're putting that cold ice water in your belly, and the cold contracts, and it makes you less likely to sweat and less likely then to cool off. He said, what you want to do is drink hot things, eat spicy food, because it makes you sweat more, and then you get more evaporative cooling, and your body temperature actually goes down. And if you look at my friends, like I was saying, in southern India, they eat super spicy, super hot food. And I talked to them about it. They said, oh, it's the same thing. We actually want to sweat more. We want to bring that heat from the inside of the body to the outside of the body where it can cool off, because then after we feel cooler. Now, I'm not saying that everyone needs to be drinking hot coffee and eating, like jalapeno level spice, or what's that spice that's really the crazy one? Ghost pepper.
Ooh,
that's not a spice of the ghost pepper, right? We don't need to go to that level, but it's an interesting concept. And I think for myself, I've noticed I don't tend to drink a lot of ice cold beverages anymore, and I do just fine. I think they're more psychologically cooling than they actually are cooling. Just a side note that billions of people in other countries and other cultures do it the complete flip of how we do it here. And I think it's worth noting and maybe doing some experimenting on your own.
I will happily eat tikka masala every single day if it's going to keep me cool, because it is like my favorite thing in the world.
So good.
So other techniques that they've got, I mean, certainly the internet itself was providing different solutions of like, well, you can bring multiple water bottles and freeze one, and then you can, have the other one to drink and one to kind of hold on to, and that helps.
Yep.
One of the things I have found, and I don't know if you've seen these or not, but they kind of look like, if you've ever seen the motion sickness bands where it's got the little pressure point, it's like the little half circle on the wristbands. We used to have them in college for helping with maybe too good of a night the night before. They work. I stole one off of, I used to clean boats for a living, and like if you found stuff that were repoed or whatever, like, oh, you take them home. Like they didn't care. They didn't want us to throw them out. So anyways, I had some of those, and I thought that those worked, but they actually then took those and turned the little half circles into like little metal ball bearings. Then you can take that and you put it in the freezer. When you're going out on a hot day, you can put them back around your wrists. And of course, those are pressure points for where your blood is flowing. And so now you've got this super cold, like metal ball bearing almost wrapped on your wrists. And that's helping cool your blood flow down as it's going, in and out of your extremities. I have heard that it works. I haven't tried it myself, but it's the same concept as taking an ice cube and putting it on your wrist, right?
Yeah.
You're helping to cool down your blood flow. So it's holding on to that coolness a little bit as you're walking around or getting into an airplane or whatever it might be.
You know how I was saying that I did my solo cross countries last year on that brutally hot day? I did take one of those frozen ice packs with me so that when I got to my first destination, I could just put it on my neck, put it on my upper chest, and just cool my skin off. And I think it does really help the brain to downgrade that like near fight or flight response of like, I'm so freaking hot. Whatever it's doing functionally, for me, it dialed down that stress response of I'm so hot. I'm so hot. It's so hot. My sweat's in my eyes. My iPad overheated. It's so hot. It's so hot. It just kind of, as you would always say, it lowered the temperature, but of the mental perception of that heat. So I think those things can be really powerful tools. Nothing feels better than just, you get that ice on you. It's like, it just kind of lets everything slow down for a moment.
Well, and of course, there's also the commercial solutions. So again, those of you that are at AirVenture, you have the benefit of 4 large hangars full of merchants selling anything and everything. And one of the things that you see are these super cool, like coolers that you can buy that are specifically developed. You stick it in the back seat of a 182 or a Cirrus or whatever, and you fill it with ice. And then it's got like a little hole in the bottom with a fan. And so now it's blowing the air through the cooler across the ice. You're kind of creating your own little swamp cooler for the airplane. I've never tried one myself, but they've been around forever and they must work because it seems people are buying them. So for all of these creative solutions you can sort of hack yourself into on your own, there are a ton of different really cool things that businesses have designed, developed, and sold to the public, and this being one of those things. It's funny because I was talking with one of my coworkers and he has a restored Bronco and he has no air conditioning in that, and he was boiling on one of the drives to work, and he was telling me, he's like, yeah, I went on the internet and I found these designs for this swamp cooler that I can put in the airplane. And of course that led into a discussion of he has a couple different airplanes that he flies for fun and with his family and stuff. Like, oh, well, you could take that same concept and go straight from your Bronco, keep it running, and go put it straight into your airplane. So there's a ton of really cool commercially available ideas should you have the funding for these things as well.
Pilots, if you do this stuff, seriously, drop us an email at calmcockpit@gmail.com. I want to see photos of your swamp cooler. I want to see it in the airplane. What else are you doing? John, where do you stand on the whole portable fan thing? They have ones that like attach right around your neck now. Does that help you, not help you?
I mean, I'm not saying I'm a vain person,
Yeah.
but I also try not to look stupid in public. And
it's like the neck pillow at the airport, the people who have no shame and they just walk around.
Yeah, I mean, no insult to anybody who actually uses these things. Frankly, you're smarter than me for not caring what other people think. But my image as an instructor, I don't think that I could be walking around with a little fan hanging from my neck spraying me in the face while I'm trying to talk to a student. It just at Disney World, maybe. But walking into a SR-20 Cirrus, I don't know.
Yeah, but maybe one like a clip-on fan would be cool for like inside the cockpit, right? Just have one. But I love the Cessna I fly now. It has a great little built-in little air scoop. I mean, it's analog, you just slide this little tube over and whoosh, get this blast of air. Works great for me and it doesn't need batteries.
Yeah. So do you have any other creative hacks or thoughts on any of this, or should we just jump into a summary here?
Well, I think when it comes down to it, thinking ahead would always be my advice to folks. If you have personal minimums, include heat on there. They're going to be different if you're from Georgia than if you're a northerner like me, but write them down ahead of time so that you know where your limit is. So you're not waiting until a super hot day to make a decision when you're on the ramp with get-there-itis, and then you push yourself and you have an accident and everyone goes, why did he or she make that decision? And if we could trace it back, maybe it was because some of these issues got a little out of hand. I would also say my other bit of advice with that pre-planning is just adjust your flight times. I've been loving flying at 7:30 in the morning. I would love to fly even earlier than that, or flying late in the day and just skipping that whole middle part of the day. Taking a nap, being in the AC, going to the pool. If you have the freedom to fly general aviation, 100% of your flights are optional. So why not schedule them so that it's fun and enjoyable? And if you're a CFI and you can do that, why not take the responsibility for having your schedule be not just, oh, we gritted through it and aren't we tough, but that you made a really smart decision that's also teaching your future pilots you're training how to adjust their thinking as well. So it's not just press on through. It's like, how about you just avoid that super stressful thing altogether? Like, why do you need to do that? You can do it a different way and have an even better result that's more enjoyable. The easy way is hard enough. So plan ahead, take it easy on yourself, and stay cool. All those AirVenture peeps, I hope you're having fun. I know what Wisconsin feels like. I grew up in Northern Illinois. I know how hot it is. So get into that AC if you can.
I couldn't agree more, and that's a great summary. And as we sort of wind this down to our 5 key takeaways here, we've got hydrate before flying. You covered this already. Think about this 24 hours in advance if you can. And I love the idea of the sort of natural ways of absorbing the water with a little bit of salt and maple syrup. I think that's an idea that I am going to start to try myself, because I don't think I took your advice the first time. So we'll try it again.
I will link that episode in the show notes. So the bonus that I did on hydration. So if people just want to kind of get that hydration piece again, I'll link that.
It goes without saying, carry extra water. Use whatever technology you need to keep yourself apprised, whether that's a smart water bottle or just a small cooler or a water bottle just in front of you, kind of sitting on your lap, whatever works for you, but make sure you're paying attention to that. And that can be sort of combined with any kind of cooling tools that work. So swamp cooler, a fan, one of those things that blows the cool mist on you. I don't care what it is, but something that keeps that brain and your body in an optimal way to be making those sound, safe, solid decisions, because the airplane does not change in the sense that you still have to take off, you still have to land, you still have to fly appropriately, and it is your body that's going to be doing those things. So put yourself in a place where you can do that efficiently and safely. And the most important thing is monitoring yourself, remembering that maybe when you could do a 8-hour day flight instructing or flying or whatever that is on a comfortable 60, 70 degree day, that 8 hours is going to feel like 12 if you're on a 100 or 80 degree plus day. So make your schedule different, similar to what you just said, because you are going to get fatigued faster. You are going to get distracted. You're going to be thinking less clearly than you otherwise would. So therefore condense that schedule into something more realistic, something more safe. And then of course, we all know on drastic circumstances, it can become a health and safety issue, not just from a performance standpoint, but from a body standpoint. And instructors, your job wearing many, many hats isn't just taking care of yourself. It is taking care of your students. So if you have a student, let's say they're on the older spectrum, they're going to be more susceptible to the heat than you. You might be a 20-something pilot aspiring to be an airline pilot, and maybe your student, maybe you're doing a flight review for someone who's 65.
Yep.
They are going to be more susceptible to this heat. So plan accordingly. And if that means you need to make their decisions for them for a safety reason, then that's something that you have the discretion to do as flight instructors. You can cancel the flight. They may not always be happy with you about it, but at the end of the day, not having to call any safety professionals, health professionals when you land, that's a much better day. So consider that.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think our bodies are just so super important. And very often our mind can override what our bodies need. So this is a good time to kind of slow down. And when the temperature rises, preparing ahead of time to protect the hydration, the energy, and the mental sharpness is part of that I'm safe checklist. And it should be part of every flight operation. For everyone at AirVenture at Oshkosh right now, stay cool, my friends, and drop us a line. Let us know how you are staying cool. Especially, have you seen any cool new products there? Neither John or I can be there this year. Me, because I'm scheduling that check ride finally. But John, he's flying professionally. So you got to be our eyes and ears, folks. Let us know, what are you seeing? What products are out there? How are you handling it? I'm sure there's so many more ideas that we probably missed today and that we could include in a future episode, which would help other pilots. So drop us a line at calmcockpit@gmail.com. We'd love to hear about it, see your pictures, show us your thumbs up that you are surviving the heat. What else? Where else can people find us and support the show?
Well, you can find us on social media, Calm Cockpit, sometimes Calm Cockpit Podcast. And you can find us pretty much anywhere you listen to podcasts. Obviously, if you're listening now, you found us somewhere. But remember, you can find us pretty much anywhere else. And if you recommend the show, which we'd love you to do, there should be no limitation to your friends finding the Calm Cockpit, however they choose to do so. And we encourage you to leave us a 5-star review if you can. That helps us get out to even more friends. It helps us continue doing what we love to do, and that's educate you on different ways to perform and fly better.
Awesome. So everyone, please stay cool. And until next time, fly smarter
and stress less.
Airbus Air 1 departure is Airbus 321. Traffic holding crossing runway 33 left 3 lane.